Hey everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about question 20 on the AMC 8 2020. Now, this question, again, make sure to read the question carefully and don't be afraid to do some visual thinking if you need. Okay, so let's read the question first. A scientist walking through a forest recorded as integers the height of 5 trees standing in a row. She observed that each tree was either twice as tall or half as tall as the one to its right. Excuse me. Unfortunately, some of her data was lost when rain fell on her notebook. Her notes are as shown below, with blanks indicating the missing numbers. Based on her observations, the scientist was able to reconstruct the lost data. What was the average height of trees in meters? Okay, now let's read the question again, but let's underline some keywords as we read this time. A scientist was walking through a forest and recorded as integers the heights of the 5 trees standing in a row. She observed that each tree was either twice or half as tall. Twice or half as tall as the one to its right. Unfortunately, some of her data was lost when rain fell on her notebook. Her notes are as shown below, with blanks indicating the missing numbers. Based on her observations, the scientist was able to reconstruct the lost data. What was the average of height of the trees in meters? Okay, so what can we tell from reading these questions? Okay, so the height of each tree is an integer. And if one tree is to the right of another tree, it is either twice or half as tall. And your answer should be in meters. Okay, so I've drawn a lovely diagram of our 5 trees here. And what are we going to do? Okay, so we know that this one, let's just say this is the second one. This one is 11 meters. Now, this tree is to the right of this tree, right? Okay, so what could this tree possibly be? It could either be 1/2 of the tree to its right, so 1/2 of 11, or it could be double for the tree to its right, which is 11 times 2. Now you might think that both those options are viable, but actually if you remember reading the question, it's supposed to be an integer. Therefore, 11 divided by 2, which is 5.5, will not be a viable option. So the only option for this one, well, the first tree, would have to be 22. Now, the third tree is to the right of the second tree. Now, what could this be? It can either be 11 times 2 or 11 divided by 2. So the same thing goes as with the first tree. It can't be 5.5 because that's not an integer. So this would have to be 22. Now, what about this one? It could either be 11 or it could be 44, right? Okay, and for the last option, it could either be 22, 88, or 22. Sorry guys, I don't know why it's not writing. Okay, it's 22. So essentially, what we have is a few different options. The first one is 22, 11, 22, 44, and 22. And it goes in order like that. Now, it can also be 22, 11, 22, 11, and 22. Now, the last option would obviously be 22, 11, 22, 11. Oh, sorry, not 22, 11. 22, 11, 22, 44, and 88. Now, here is where it might get a little difficult or you might get stuck during the question because you're like, how am I supposed to figure out which one of these three options is the correct one? Because they're all technically valid. Well, let's look at the table that they've given here. It says the average height ends in 0.2 meters. So it's like x 0.2 meters. So x can be whatever value it is. And then 2 would be, well, 0.2. So what are we going to do? We can try out the first one to see if it works. And so how to find out the average? Well, you do 22 plus 11 plus 22 plus 44 plus 22 and divide that all by 5. So I'm going to pull out my calculator here and let's calculate that together. I wonder if I can make it smaller. Okay, anyways. So 22 plus 11 plus 22 plus 44 plus 22. I am correct. Okay, now that gives you 121. Now let's divide that by 5. Divided by 5. Hooray, it ends in 0.2. Is that the correct answer? Maybe. But one thing that I've learned from doing math questions throughout my years is that just because your answer seems to be the correct answer doesn't mean that you can't try all of the other options. Now, if you're on a time crunch, this is question 20. If you're on question 20 and you have, say, 7 minutes left, you can mark that question with maybe like a question mark or a little star so you know that if you have any extra time left over, you can come back to this question and look. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the second two options even though I know the first one may be correct, because this will establish a good habit. 22 plus 11 plus 22 plus 11 and plus 22. Oh, not 222. 22. All right, that gives you 88. Now let's divide that by 5. What does that give you? Okay, 17.6. So we know that answer cannot be correct, so we can cross it off. Now, last one. 22 plus 11 plus 22 plus plus 44 plus 88. That'll give you 187. Now let's divide that by 5. That gives you 37.4, which makes you know that this also isn't the correct answer, which by default will make the first answer the correct one. Now again, I did all three of them to establish a good habit of not skipping out on any other choices just because you think that the first one is correct. Okay, and is 24.2 an option here? Yes, it is. It is option B, and that is the correct answer for this question. Now, one more thing that I like to point out when I notice during this question is, or doing any question, is that if you get stuck on doing a question, make sure to read the question again at least 2 times to make sure that you've used every single element that they've given you. And if you think you've used all the elements, try to find new elements that you could possibly utilize in helping you figure out the question. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.